All right. Well, if you're ready, I'll do just a little introduction.
Let's do it. Let's jump on in.
Let's jump right in. All right. So, welcome to another episode of Natural Beauty Chats. My name is Ashley, and today I'm so excited to be chatting with Chelsea Berchon. Chels
Hi.
she's a really good friend of mine. Hey, Chels, thanks for joining us. And yeah, we have a lot of history together in this life thus far. A lot of things in common. We met in Austin, but we both have a history in South Africa. And yeah, Chelsea is someone that I would just consider like a soul sister. And she's traveled the world and just been on all kinds of adventures. So I'm really excited to be able to ask you all the questions that I've always wanted to ask you and share it with the world as well.
Yeah, thank you for having me today. I'm happy to be here
Yeah,
and always
I'm
to just
so
connect and
so
talk with
stoked.
you.
I'm trying to remember I'm trying to remember when it was that we met exactly. I want to say it was like 2015.
Yeah,
Um,
it could have even been
and
like 2014. We've known each other for a while.
it has been quite a journey, and I think you and I have been on our own separate journeys around the world since then. So yeah, I would love to hear from you. Like for people who don't know, if you can just tell us like a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, so obviously travel is a big part of my life. I think that there is the origin in that, and as Ashley has touched on, is my family is from South Africa. So my parents immigrated here, oh gosh, I don't know, like over 30 years ago. Um, but they both grew up in Durban on the coast of South Africa. Um, I think kind of pivoting straight into what travel means to me, um, my parents have a unique story that sort of, I think, laid the foundation for why I love travel so much. So they started dating when they were 15. They got married when they were 22. They moved to America maybe, I think, when they were like in their late 20s, and they traveled for years together. They like built businesses and just explored the entire world, and they only had me, their first child, at the age of 40. So I think, like, innately, genetically, like, I was just born to roam. uh, Not to sound cheesy, but that is in fact in my DNA. Um, yeah, so uh, um, yes,
So you were born to travel,
born
basically.
to travel. Yes, I can't help myself.
So why do you travel other than the fact that it's just ingrained in you? Like was there anything else that happened in your life that just like triggered this adventure of traveling by yourself? I mean, I know that you have traveled with other people, but since I've known you, you've kind of been on this solo journey where, wherever you go, you might be like going to meet up with friends or like doing things with people. But I think your journey is very unique in that everywhere you go, like you kind of have been going there alone. So maybe you can speak to that a little bit.
Yeah, I think you're touching on a lot of points here. First of all, why do I travel? I tend to I tend to look for ways to, or like ways to organize my growth and the way that I move throughout my life. And oftentimes I feel like I'm sort of a somebody that likes to form constructs in as many ways as possible. So I know this is sounding kind of confusing, but like, I've noticed this in myself when I'm looking to be pushed outside of my comfort zone. It helps to literally be outside of my comfort zone. And although some would argue that maybe my comfort zone is now becoming more of travel, but it's inevitable that anytime I go somewhere new or I'm in the transition of moving around, it's like a crash course in learning about yourself. I mean, you're really pushing the boundaries on what's going to come up, and that always looks a little bit different. And so for me to be somewhere new and to sort of see the world and myself, culture, people through a different lens really helps me with perspective. And to touch on the second point that you brought up, yeah, I think that I have a pretty, well, here, let me explain it through. Another thing I like to do is when I come to these realizations around the growth that I experience in these different places, and it obviously happens at home too. So I'm not just like, I'm, whatever. I'm not just avoiding being at home. I actually really enjoy, I enjoy being home, I think even to a deeper extent because of my my travel. It allows me to appreciate it on a greater level. But yeah, so what I tend to do is I create a symbol that represents a specific type of growth that I've experienced on whatever endeavor I go through. And if you've seen me before, I also have places written all over me. So I've lived a lot of different places, and I will put on my body all the places that have been really impactful or that I consider home in some form or fashion. But yeah, so going back to your question about, or your comment about me traveling alone and also like landing in these places that are sort of people based. I have a tattoo that is X over 1, like the good old fashioned algebra, high school algebra class formula. And the representation of that, I think, is reflected in travel a lot. The 1 represents myself. It's on the bottom. It's important for me to always stay grounded in who I am. And the X represents my people, my community that are all over. And I like to make sure that I'm putting them above me, that I'm keeping my eyes like up above on the people that inspire me to see new things and to learn new things. And anything that you X divided by 1 is whatever that number is. So whatever you put into something is what you get out of it. And so, yeah, it's, I never want to hold myself back because of fear of doing something alone. And, but I also like, I need that balance. I need that community. I need to feel a connection to people. And I think I've created that all over. So what ends up happening is I'm on it. I'm moving around on my own, but I've got to have people on the end of that.
Yeah, totally. I love that we're already segueing into your tattoos, and I think that makes so much sense. I mean, I love what you said about the importance of being grounded in yourself. And I mean, like, since I've known you, that's like the one thing that I've admired about you so much, is just that as I've seen you like go through life and go through different like jobs and living in different places, that I've never seen you compromise for like comfortability and security or money. I love the fact that like you will never let anything compromise your authenticity, your integrity, like your character. And it just seems like so and maybe this comes from your parents too, but like so deeply ingrained in you that no matter what happens, like even if you have to be in survival mode, like you won't ever budge on staying true to yourself. Um, and that even for me, is like I feel like I need to take lessons from you on that, because as much as like I've kind of bounced around the world myself too, like I don't know, I feel like I've always had like some sort of like plan B or like some sort of security net. So anyway, yeah, I just remember like I remember when I saw you after, and what was it? It was probably like a couple years that we really didn't see each other. And then we were reunited in Austin like a few months ago. And it was just funny because like when I knew you before, I don't think you even had any tattoos except for you had like the 3 bands around your arm. I feel like we need to post a photo of your tattoos after this interview. But like all you had was the 3 bands about your family, which I'd love to like put a pin in that and talk about. But when I saw you back in March, you had like just this like all this beautiful art like all over your arms. And I remember like I just couldn't wait to ask you about it. And then when we were traveling in Cabo, finally, like it was so nice to sit down and I don't even know how it came about, but you were just like pointing out all the different places that you have tattooed on your arms, and you were like telling me why they're significant. So yeah, I'd love to know like from you, what like of those tattoos, like what do people misinterpret the most?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of misinterpretation that happens. People love to like take guesses, but I have one tattoo that I think like represents this me pretty well, and it's kind of got like it's a bunch of lines, but it's really what it is the inside of a tree. People like always guess like, is that a fried egg or avocado or oyster? Or I honestly think people are just like hungry all the time. It's not food, it's a tree. um and yeah, so this one speaks into my nature, I think. So the outside layering of that is of the tree is what's exposed to the world. It represents curiosity. I think like at my core, I'm just such a curious person, and I can't not try. Like I have to do it, I have to touch it, I have to experience it to know. And I think that's why I sort of can't. I mean, it's not that I don't have a plan B, because like I have so much, I have so many people that I have amazing people in my life that if I needed to fall back in any way, like they would bring me into their home and welcome me. And honestly, a lot of my travel is that. It's people being like, come stay with me for a few months. And so I have privilege in that. I have family and friends who are so receptive and so loving and caring. But yeah, I have to try something. If I feel it in me, the need to experience something that's on my mind or something that I feel called towards, like I'm gonna do it. But I think that the rest of this tattoo is what makes the difference. And the second layer of that is reflection. I've learned the hard way. I used to just try things. I tried everything, and I think I've been way more intentional in, the last maybe 5+ years of my life of like, okay, if you're just trying things but you're not really setting aside the mindful intentional time to reflect on what was good about this, what did I learn, what did I not like what felt authentic to me in it, then you're just kind of running around in chaos, just doing all the different things and not really taking away much from that. And I think without this second layer of reflection, you're not able to get to the inside, the core of the tree, which is growth. yeah, so growth. So I try to experience the world, reflect upon that, and honestly, like, I'm back to that sort of foundational me, is that I'm pretty habitual, and I think I have to be, because I'm floating around so much that, to stay grounded within myself, I'm a creature of habit, which obviously, not obviously, but it shocks a lot of people. I have a lot of routines and practices that I live and breathe by. And sometimes that can just be my journal and waking up in the morning and writing. And when I'm more fortunate, like being in a place that I have access to, like, for instance, a keyboard, or my bicycle, or whatever that may be, I tend to rely pretty heavily on staying grounded through these practices that I commit to.
Wow, I love that. I love so much that the tattoo is a progression from like curiosity to reflection to growth. I apologize for the background noise. There's smoothies being made right now. But yeah, because I think that I think that there is this importance in just like exploring and trying things on your own. Like for everyone, that's important. And sometimes we just get like too comfortable or too afraid to try things. And but I think the problem with just being in the curiosity phase is that oftentimes things don't really, like, experiments don't go the way that we hoped, and like we get disappointed because like our expectations weren't met, or we just like think we had made a bad decision, or like just had a bad experience that there's no that it's hard to find the good in it, and I think that's where the reflection is so important, is because then it's like, okay, well, if something negative happened in your exploration phase, then like if you don't, and I think the key to the reflection part is actually like quieting your mind and actually slowing down. We're
Mhm.
so good at distracting ourselves these days, and I feel like if you don't slow down and literally get into a space where you can just think, um that reflection doesn't happen, and like the integration of your experience doesn't happen, and like sadly then the experiences become wasted because then, like you said, there isn't any growth.
Yeah,
um
well
so
said.
yeah, did you have any other thoughts on that?
I mean, I don't think that any experience is wasted, but like, I think that it really pushes us to like lean into ourselves more, when we do take that time. And I like the use of the word integration. I think that that's like, that really well describes it. Allows us to integrate like all of the things in life, because they can be seemingly unconnected, but when you take the time, you set aside that time, like you're saying, you actually see that it's all really integrated, and you can learn so much about yourself, about other people, and about the world.
Totally, totally. Like then, yeah, the integration doesn't happen if you don't process.
Mm.
um so yeah, I would love to know from you, like, you have all these tattoos and they have different words of different places, but I'm curious, do you have like a phrase or like words that are your favorite words to live by, like that you feel is just the core of who you are?
Um, I have like a phrase that I come to very often. Um, and it's funny because you actually just like touched on one of the words in it. My phrase that I live by is, or I just come back to it all the time. It's high hopes, low expectations. Um, I'm
High
a
hopes, no
dreamer.
expectations.
High hopes, low
Love that.
expectations. Yeah, I'm a dreamer. I mean, I never want to lose sight of my hope,
Love
but
it.
to hold anything too tightly is just a recipe for like living in a really, really hard mental framework. So, like, as much as I have big dreams, I also love like the simplicity of, oh, nothing really crazy happened, and there's a lot of beauty in that, and it takes the pressure off. Like, I really want to do my best to stay present, and I think to create or go into anything with an expectation immediately will suck you out of being present in the moment.
I love that. I think, yeah, that phrase is just you, like, to the T. That's awesome. So I have one more question I've been like dying to ask you, and that is like, what piece of advice would you have for anyone who's considering solo travel, but feeling nervous to actually pull the trigger? Like, especially, what advice would you have for like female solo travelers?
Yep. So I think that the key here is to give yourself space to make the decision. We are innately very intuitive creatures. We know what's best for ourselves. We know what feels like a good or a bad choice. And I think we don't set aside, well, I don't want to generalize, but like oftentimes it's hard to set aside time in whatever way that you process talking out loud, writing, to make a decision. And if you're going to make a decision where that is like you're feeling sort of hesitant to go forth with, you have to like give yourself that space, because you'll know. Nobody else is going to know for you. If it doesn't feel right, don't follow it. But I think that like giving yourself that space to make the decisions, and part two of that would be staying really open to a shift in plans, because you can get somewhere and it can change, and then you have to sort of do that process again. But like, I mean, how beautiful is it to set aside time? We've been talking about this a lot in general, just to set aside time for yourself. But I think that like that comes into effect even stronger when you're making a decision that's like, you know, that is multifaceted and sort of layered. Whereas, is this safe? Like, does this really feel safe? Does this feel like the right time? Like, why am I doing this? To ask yourself those hard questions, and you're always going to be the only one that knows the answers for what's best.
I love that. And I love what you said about just taking the time for yourself to really figure that out, because I think, yeah, in order to actually listen to and like hear what your inner compass is saying, you have to really like shut out all the other noise. Because yeah, I know for myself, anytime that I haven't, well, first of all, like anytime that I haven't just like trusted my gut and listened to that inner voice, like I've always regretted it. Like it's never steered me wrong. But I think the times that I haven't is like you said, when I didn't give myself that space and just say like, hey, take your time, like sit down and think about this, but rather allowed all the outside perspectives, like all the noise, all the other inputs, to then convince myself from a rational perspective, like, well, all these other things, all these other like inputs that I'm getting, like externally, they're making sense. So I'm going to put those all together and make a decision, rather than just like shutting all that out and seeing and tuning into like what's really inside of you and what actually feels in flow, because you've given yourself that space.
Yeah. I feel like a practice that I do often, which it may seem kind of silly, is I talk to myself like I'm a child. Like I feel like I come at the conversation with myself very calmly and very like in like layman's terms, just like how, like, I don't know why I said layman's term, that doesn't even make sense, but I talk to myself in this very like elementary way where it's like, how do you feel about this? Like, what do you want to, why do you want to do this? What makes you excited? What are you
Yeah.
scared about? You know, you don't have to overcomplicate it. You just have to be gentle with yourself.
Yeah, it's like nurturing yourself
Mm-hmm.
to get to the answer.
Mm-hmm.
I love that. Well, Chels, thank you so much for taking the time, and I just wanted to ask you, like, before we wrap up, is there anything else like on your heart that you feel like you want to share with the world?
Again, my last one, my favorite tattoo is I have this little alien. And he's got a t-shirt. I don't know why I always say he. My alien has a t-shirt on with a heart on the sleeve. And it's my favorite tattoo because it's playful and it's cute and it's the reminder that one, like, we are all aliens. You never know what anyone's going through. And so it's important to know that we all have our own struggles, and the best we can do is to, like that little alien, to wear your heart on your sleeve. I think when we do that, it never serves us wrong.
I love that. And I feel like just with your tattoos in general, you really are like wearing your heart on your sleeve because you've just like marked all these things on your body that are super important to you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it makes for a good conduit of conversation.
For sure. For sure. Well, Chels, this has been such a pleasure, and I'm so glad that I got to just pick your brain on all the things I wanted to ask you about forever. But as we wrap up, I just wanted to ask you, like, where can people find you online if they want to continue to follow along with your journey?
Yeah, I'm not big on the interwebs. I post like a Instagram post like every once in a while. That's You can follow me on Spotify. I love making playlists. No, if you want to follow me on Instagram or Spotify or whatever it is, I think like I'm probably most interesting on Spotify though. My name is Chelsea Berchon. No matter where you search me, just type in ChelseaBerchon.
Awesome. So yeah, go look up Chelsea Berchon if you want to follow along on her playful adventure, and we can also link that in notes, and I'd love to also post some photos of your tattoos so people can see what we're talking about.
I'm usually not in front of the camera, but I'm sure we can find something.
Don't worry, it doesn't have to be your face. It can be anonymous. All right, babe. Well, thank you so
Ashley.
much.
You are an amazing puller outer of stories. You're a great question asker is what I'm actually saying.
Thank you. I just get so excited to just gather all the gold nuggets from people, and you happen to be one who has a lot of them. So it's my absolute pleasure. And yeah, thanks so much everyone also for listening and tuning in, and we will chat with you guys soon.
All righty. Bye.
All righty. Bye.